I want to talk very briefly about a condition called confusion. And a lot of time, confusion is going to be because we have a conflict in some part of the three parts of our brain. It's the philosopher and author Ayn Rand who's often quoted as saying that contradiction leads to destruction, and the amount of destruction is level to the degree of the contradiction. So what do I mean by contradiction? Well, let's consider the three parts of your brain. Ever so briefly, we can talk about the survival, we can talk about the limbic, and then we can talk about the logical portions of the brain. The survival portion of the brain, yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. This is what's responsible at the subconscious level of all of your body functions. Controls your heart, your lungs, your digestive system. It is what is involved in keeping you alive. And in truth, even though all parts of the brain are online at different parts since the moment that we're born, this is the center right at the base of the skull, at the top of the neck right here, that's responsible up until we're about the age of 8. And so whether we do or do not have conscious memory, all the experiences that we go through are being recorded by this survival part of the brain. This is how we need to behave. This is how we need to act. This is what we need to do based on the circumstances of our environment and all the things that our teachers, preachers, parents, etc. are all going to be telling us to do is what we do. And we absorb it all at that subconscious level. Then when we're about 8, we've evolved a little bit, and then the feeling part of the brain really starts to come a bit more online, where we start to establish what we are in terms of human beings. We start to try to make our own way as we have the development of what's called the limbic or the mammalian brain. And yes, there's a lot more neurophysiology and anatomy that goes like this, but we're talking broad strokes here. In other words, our emotions start to run the show. And this is particularly evident if you either have a teenager or you ever were a teenager at some point, especially when you start to mix changing hormones and changing neurophysiology into the works. We are run by our emotions. If it feels good, we do it. If we don't like how it feels, we don't do it. And this cause-effect relationship goes a really, really long way. But only so far. As we oftentimes know, teenagers make dumb choices. I'm not going to say I'm any different, but general rule of thumb. Of course, a lot of great teenagers out there, but we all do things where, didn't really think that one through as much as I should have. Part of the reason for that is because the logical part of the brain, so the upper part, the cortex, that doesn't really start to come into its own until a person really is in their mid-20s. So we've already been able to go out and have cigarettes, go out and watch movies, go out and drink alcohol, but it's really not till we're in the middle part of our 20s that logic part really starts to mature to say, okay, does this actually make sense? And to where we're able to project consequences. As a bit of an aside, it's usually not until we're about 50 years old where we've had enough experiences and where we've had enough, okay, well, we did this and this is what happened and we did this, that we know this had happened, that we start to project what is known as wisdom. And that is, well, I could do this or I could do this, but which one is actually worth my time and effort? The sign of maturity, I haven't quite gotten there just yet. It's coming soon enough. Now, what's the point in all of this? Well, when we talk about having memories, again, consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, imprinted on the survival part of the brainstem, on the limbic system, the mammalian brain, or the feeling system, or the logical part of the brain, we can have conflict. And you know this, if you've ever had that feeling within yourself, well, part of me wants to do this, and part of me wants to do that. And I'm feeling paralyzed, and I'm feeling stuck. And I know that this is what I should do, but this is what I want to do. These kinds of conflicts represent contradictions. And usually they are contradictions because you haven't realized what's actually going on in your mind. In fact, very likely you've got the 2 different parts, maybe even 3 different parts of your brain fighting against each other. One says, okay, well, yes, this is something that we believe is true. Why? Because this is something that our parents told us when we were 4 years old. But then the logical part of the brain says, okay, well, we learned something else, and this is the way that we should behave, but the two of them are actually in conflict. And when there's conflict, we don't know what to do in terms of our body. So we end up getting stuck in life situations. We don't know what we need to do to take care of our relationships. We don't even know what to do. We need to take care of ourselves. We think that we should do this. Yeah, we want to do this, but oh, I don't really have the willpower to do that. And all of the different reasons why we can or we can't or we should or we shouldn't start to flood. They start to overwhelm us. And what did Ayn Rand say? Contradictions lead to destruction. In this particular case, your own individual construction, my own individual destruction, for however long it is that we are not able to make a proactive decision. Now, everybody's circumstance is, of course, going to be different. I'm not going to pretend that in this little video here, oh, I'm some kind of guru. I'm not, who has all of the answers. But what I can tell you is this. Simply put, if you recognize in your life you're experiencing one of these moments, you're stuck with analysis paralysis. Part of you wants to do this, part of you wants to do that. Odds are, somewhere in your mind, you have a belief system, and there are two things that you believe both to be true, when in reality, they're the exact opposite. And you cannot have one or the other, and you have to find a way of reconciling this. And so what this is going to require, in all honesty, work. And this has nothing to do in terms of what we do in the individual practice, but this we know from having taken care of people for the better part of 15 years here now, is that when people have contradictions in the mind, it's going to play out in their health any number of times, in any number of different ways. And this is critical. If you want to be as healthy and well as you want to be, that you actually look at these underlying things. Some people find it's easier to write it down. Other times people find it's easier to talk it out with somebody who you trust, to just use as a sounding board, so that you can bring it up to the surface to recognize, I'm believing two things that actually are in opposition. Because when you bring it to your conscious awareness, it gives you the ability to look at these things and to find out, okay, well, how are these serving me? Under which circumstances are these serving me? Do I possibly need to let one of these go? And as a result of that, be able to make the forward progress in whatever aspect it is our life. This is something that takes a lot of soul searching. People, in fact, work at this kind of stuff over the course of their entire life. Maybe this is only the first time you've heard about this particular kind of exercise. And if so, I would encourage you to explore this concept in a lot greater detail. The idea that we have the things that we've taken on into our mind, but that it can impact us at different levels, and there can actually be a conflict in these ideas. And so if we're looking for congruence, clarity, and the ability to then move forward in any aspect of our life that we want to, we have to be able to reconcile these differences, come then to a logical, thought-out conclusion that's based not just on logic, but also on feeling, and also that thing that we believe to be most true to ourselves, so that whatever decision we do decide we make, we know that ultimately it's going to be something that serves us and leads us towards whatever is of our highest values. Good luck with that, and thanks for watching. See you next time.
For more information about upper cervical care, please call us on 3188 9329 or visit us at atlashealth.com.au.